We're going to draw a random witch. I start with kind of getting all the lines in place, the shape of the face, and kind of where I'm having it look. And I sort of start twisting in, and I like to get the eyes going first because they really help me identify where everything else goes. Now, this nose is out of proportion because it's really some pretty eyes, and this nose is going to be grotesque. And then I put the lips in to kind of mark where they're going to be, and I start shading just to feel the shape of the head. I want to find every bit of depth that I can. So then I start to work a little bit of detail. I go into the nose and the lips, and then I start to feel whether or not I'm going to have to add more depth to it. And then I get around the eyes, and I start putting some of the shading around the eyes and really starting to make them a little bit more piercing. And so now that I have the eyes and nose and mouth in a given position, I want to start working around the rest of the shape. Now, I throw a wart on the nose just to keep me remembering that this is not a pretty girl. This is something that's going to be, kind of grotesque. But I'll add the shape of her face, and I start adding a little bit of the bags under the eyes to give a little bit more of the intensity of this aged woman. And then I'm going to try to find the chin beneath it. The chin has got to be long, and then all of the side of the head has to have its shade going. So I kind of add a little bit more depth to it, seeing where I can make this feel like the thing is looking at me. Dropping the neck in gives it some darkness. A little sketch where I think a hat might be. And I'll place that around there, and it's going to have a band on it. So this is kind of a hat. And then I'll give it a little shape of the hair. And I want to find out how dark this hair has to be to recede beyond the face. So I put some of these scraggly lines in that just kind of help me feel like it's just a nasty old hair. And that side of the hat, I want to kind of shorten it a little bit, so I just sort of shade underneath there. And then I start to kind of separate the hat from the rest of the head so that it doesn't look like it's just blending into it. You kind of want to get some darkness in that hat, and then make sure that it feels like it's fabric more than it does anything else. Shade underneath it so that the forehead comes separate away from it, and I want to leave a little bit of lightness above the rim, and start throwing a little bit more hair in here and sort of feeling like I can get some depth in there. And again, scraggly, long lines, just placing these lines here so that it feels like it's just, oily, dirty hair. Now the hat is really important. You got to have that rim around it. And I'm putting a band on this hat just so that it's not one solid black hat. And a lot of people think of a witch's hat as real pointy and just kind of sticking up in the air. Well, I want to give it some character here, and I want to make this thing feel like it's a choice by this witch to wear this hat. So I kind of elongated the hat a little bit, and I took the corner off of it. And if you notice, I put the corner behind the hat too, so that it's kind of coming up and it shows the entire hat just sort of drifting off the back of her head. And this is almost gypsy-like on the hat, but it is still the witch's hat. It's that pointy, scary hat that you see all typical witches do. And I want to add a little bit of feeling so it's got fabric and it feels like it's got some darkness back there. And I'm not done, so I want to shade in the face because I feel it's got a little bit of a broad bridge to it. So I want to make sure that this is a feeling that this face is sort of in the darkness a little bit, and some of it's in the lightness. So I start adding a little bit more darkness, and if you notice, I've got this hatching going on the side. So then I broaden my brush, and I go in and I start adding a little bit darker to the face, and then I wanted to add a little tinge of color, so I'm adding some green in here. But that green is a little heavy, so I'm going to erase a couple spots out of it, sort of take that back, and then etch along the sides of it to kind of knock that green down just a little bit. And then I take it back. This is the advantage of working in layers. See the eyes, I put them on a separate one. Look at those eyes piercing through. And then I lighten them up too. I can lighten each one of these layers when you're doing digital artwork. That is the amazing part of digital artwork. So then I kind of start looking at this as to how I can get a little bit more depth to it. And I feel like I've got to add a little bit more darkness to the side of the face and to give it that kind of depth underneath the jawline. And I also know that I'm going to add a background to this too. So I kind of want to separate everything from it, get the darkness on the face even darker, so it feels like she's a little bit more mysterious. And that background sort of helps set it off. And then I go into the details and add the wrinkles on the lips and the underneath the eyes. And if you notice, the creases start happening on the eyes. those piercing eyes are still scary and looking at you. I can lighten up different areas and get this feeling like this mysterious woman might be able to cast a spell. So all this is coming from just the sketching, and the feeling of this witch is starting to happen. If she looks like anybody you know, I deeply apologize. It wasn't intentional. But this is how I draw a witch and just make it look like something sinister. I hope this has helped you on your drawing lessons. Stay tuned for more.